And now, broadcasting from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., it's Free Association. Here's the Fort Smith Fireball, your champion of chicken and the sultan of segways, Mark Lane.
Zing! It is Free Association on 91.3 FM. I'm Mark Lane. Stay with me until 6 p.m. on this Wednesday afternoon because I guarantee it's going to be pretty exciting. Of course, we have the true alternative music, your request when you dial 343-7913, but we'll also have headlines, and we'll talk with somebody that was in Japan when the earthquake struck, that 9.0 earthquake that hit Japan on Friday. We'll be talking with somebody that was in Tokyo. So you don't want to miss that, and you don't want to miss what's coming up next on Free Association. Foster the People with Hell in a Beat on 91.3. Telekinesis with Gotta Get It Right Now on Free Association. And if you have to get a request right now, dial 343-7913, and the kind folks in studio will put that request in for you. Normally, I, Mark Lane, would do such a thing, but since I'm in Washington, D.C., I don't have adequate access to the controls. But that doesn't mean I'm not providing exciting, informative content on 91.3 FM. You want to hear somebody that was in Tokyo whenever this 9.0 earthquake hit? Well, then keep it right here on 91.3 FM, and you'll hear my interview with Irene Inouye, the president of the U.S.-Japan Council, right here on Free Association. Stay tuned. Before that, The National with You Are a Kindness, and before that, The Hush Now with Dallas Bound, right here on 91.3 FM. When we look at the headlines right now, we see that Japan is just dominating the news cycle, as they should. They have a 9.0 earthquake that hits, they have an impending tsunami, and this terrible nuclear catastrophe that has befallen them. And such tragedy, such catastrophe like this is, I don't know, it's probably going to take them at least a decade to get over something like this. And it's not very encouraging whenever you read news like this from MSNBC.com about their auto crisis as well. Did you know that Honda is set to lose 17,000 cars and trucks over this? Did you know that Toyota is set to lose a minimum of 40,000 vehicles and an additional $72 million each day that one of its plants up there has to remain closed? $72 million each day. Now, if I were Detroit and I saw a need like this, I would seek to take advantage of this need in the auto market. But I don't really want to speculate too much like that. I don't want to sound like that Gilbert schmuck, whatever he was, that comedian that nobody ever heard of, who was the voice for Iago in Aladdin, his most famous role, who made jokes about Japan. I don't want to sound like him. See, you don't know this, but comedians, which I am, we have a curse when it comes to laughs. We will do anything to get laughs. So much to the point that we'll do stupid stuff and get fired from jobs like this. That's the comedian's curse. Think of Sharon Stone's character at the end of Casino. That's what it's like when it comes to a comedian's addiction to laughs. So what else is going on? The NCAA tournament. Well, what is your bracket? I don't care what your bracket looks like. I'm more disconsolate over the NFL lockout that happened. That's what concerns me when it comes to sports. Who wants to look at sports? Oh, you want to look at something? On YouTube, there was a video of a chunky kid getting picked on by a scrawny bully. The chunky kid picks up the scrawny bully and body slams him. So that made the news as well on MSNBC.com. I wonder if the chunky kid will be invited by President Obama to sit on the anti-bullying council at the White House. Well, we'll have to wait and find out about that one. That was Stop and Think It Over by Sarah Borges right here on Free Association. I've had to stop and think over a lot of stuff. And one thing that we're stopping and thinking about is that horrible earthquake that hit Japan on Friday. 9.0 on the Richter scale, tsunami, nuclear catastrophe, tens of thousands are dead. But joining us right now is Irene Inouye, president of the U.S.-Japan Council, who was there in Japan as the earthquake struck. Mrs. Inouye, We're very pleased that you can make it on Free Association.
Thank you, Mark.
So, tell me, what was it like?
I was in Tokyo, as you said. I am the president of the U.S.-Japan Council and was leading a 13-member delegation of Japanese American leaders to Japan. I was just ready to exit a hotel to go to another meeting and was coming down the escalator and began to feel the rocking of the escalator. I grew up in Southern California, so I've been through earthquakes before, and so assumed that it would stop. And as I got down to the base of the escalator and decided to depart the front door of the hotel, it was continuing to rock. It was actually hard to walk. And so I was with another person who actually lives in Japan, and we stood against the side of the building. You could feel the building rock as well. And I asked the individual, is this a large earthquake? And the person said, I've never felt an earthquake like this in Japan. So I knew that it was quite extensive. It continued for several minutes. And as
so there's rocking and buckling going on for several minutes, not seconds, which is usually the case.
It went on for quite a while. I actually
Wow.
don't know the length of the earthquake, but as we looked up, we could see that the traffic had stopped, and on top of buildings, there was a building nearby that was under construction, and you could see the cranes on the top of the building just swinging back and forth. It was rather scary. And there continued to be aftershocks, and as you've heard in the news, there have been hundreds of aftershocks since the original earthquake, and many of them have been quite large.
Now, how close were you to the carnage, the destruction that we see in the news?
The earthquake took place in Sendai, which is part of the Tohoku region of Japan. That's northern Japan, and it's about 150 miles north of Tokyo. So it actually is a considerable ways, which was the epicenter. And of course, what we've been seeing on the news is the devastation from the resulting tsunami.
Right. And how long did it take you to finally get back to the States?
The earthquake occurred on a Friday. I was scheduled to leave on Saturday. I finally got back on Sunday night. Although the airports reopened on Saturday afternoon, we headed out towards the airport, and it's usually about a 1-hour drive from downtown Tokyo. And we were in the car for 6 hours, and finally realized we had only gotten about a third of the way, and it was going to take us at least another 3 to 4 hours, and there was no way that we would make our flight, even though the flight was delayed. Others went to the airport, eventually made it, but then found that their flights were canceled. So the main highway that leads to the airport didn't reopen until later in the day, and so the traffic going north, which is where the airport is located, was just bumper to bumper.
Wow. Now, can you tell us what the U.S.-Japan Council does, and if there's any way that we could help your organization or somebody else in humanitarian efforts with this tragedy?
The U.S.-Japan Council is headquartered in Washington, D.C. It's a nonprofit educational organization, and our mission is to promote the strong people-to-people relationships. We have established an earthquake relief fund, and so individuals can go to our website, which is www.usjapancouncil.org. We are directing the funds that we collect directly to nonprofit, so NPO and non-governmental organizations, NGOs in Japan. We'd like to not only support the immediate relief efforts that are underway, but support the nonprofit sector in Japan for the long-term rebuilding that will be required.
Mrs. Inouye, thank you for joining us on free association, both in person and on the radio.
Thank you, Mark, and we appreciate the concern by millions of people that have been expressed to the people of Japan.
Well, you know how you can help out. You can visit the website for the U.S.-Japan Council if you want to help out. And if you want to hear a song, dial 343-7913. Do we have some Modest Mouse? Well, let's play some right now on Free Association.